Hey guys, Tony here at Stagecoach Pharmacy again, answering another question that I frequently get, and this one's about insurance deductibles. Now, whether it relates to Medicare, commercial insurance, a private plan, what happens every year is that most plans have a deductible, and this is a dollar amount that needs to be initially paid for out of pocket by you, the consumer, before the insurance plan takes into effect. For most Medicare plans, this is set at a fixed amount every year, somewhere in the neighborhood of $480 to $500. And that number changes usually year over year. For private plans, that number is ordinarily a little bit higher, sometimes lower. It really depends on the monthly premium of the plan, and that's the monthly cost of the plan. Generally, plans that have a higher monthly premium have a lower deductible, and plans that have a lower monthly premium have a higher deductible. And a lot of people don't understand what this translates to, especially if they're not taking medication that's very expensive. What we do at the pharmacy that's a little different than most pharmacies is we look at the cost of your ordinary medication and we determine if it makes sense to use your insurance or not. In some cases, if you take medication that's very affordable and you're never going to reach your out-of-pocket or deductible limit, it doesn't make sense for you to apply your insurance to those medications. For example, I've got a customer who has a blood pressure medication, a cholesterol medication, and 2 other medications for his prostate. Total cost of his medicine is less than $30 for a 90-day supply. His deductible is somewhere around $500. If I were to use his insurance, he would actually end up paying more every year than if I were to not use his insurance. But in some cases, I've got customers who take very expensive medications, and in those instances, we recommend spending your deductible as early as possible in the year. Ordinarily, most insurance deductibles start in January. That's not always the case. Some plans can be different. Knowing when your deductible resets or starts over is important. Typically, that deductible is an individual, not necessarily a family deductible. Also, knowing that helps make sense. If you know the names of the medications that you take and what they would cost out of pocket, you can very quickly determine if make the determination if you should or should not be using your insurance. What I'm seeing more commonly is people have routine medication that just is not that expensive, and so it's cheaper for them to purchase it outside of their insurance plans. Generally, this is desirable for the insurance plan because if you're not taking something that's very expensive, they're not going to tap into their pool of money to help pay for that. So what happens for those patients is their insurance plan looks more like a catastrophic insurance plan. And what that means is, hey, we've got some pretty cheap medications, but if something major happens, now we've got some coverage and we only have to spend a certain amount of dollars out of pocket. So if you have routine medications and you can look up the costs out of pocket and or call different pharmacies and price check, we get a lot of people that call and say, hey, this pharmacy or this other big box pharmacy sells it for this price. Can you match or beat that price? Oftentimes we can. We definitely want to be able to compete with other pharmacies, especially when it's cash prescriptions that aren't under insurance. That's what we call cash prescriptions, not necessarily that you pay with cash. It's just a prescription that you didn't use insurance on. So how you pay isn't necessarily what dictates whether it's a cash prescription or not. You could pay with cash, you could pay with debit card, payment is payment, but any prescriptions that are outside of insurance are very desirable to pharmacies right now, and that's because insurance payers just aren't paying what they used to. And so a lot of pharmacies are going for those people who either don't have insurance or who are willing to get a better price and not use their insurance because it's a more reliable source of income. So it doesn't hurt to call your independent pharmacy and say, hey, this is the price I'm seeing online, or this is the price I'm seeing at another pharmacy. Is this something that you can compete with? Let them know how many you need. Obviously, if you need a greater quantity and you're willing to wait longer, you generally get a better price if that pharmacy is willing to work with you. But as a note, we are in the fall right now and we're getting closer to the new year. Generally, those deductibles start over in the new year. year, a lot of people get confused whether medication was cheaper in October, November, December, and then come January, February, March, it's more expensive. And a lot of that has to do with the insurance deductibles. So be aware of deductibles. Know that if you're going to have one, to have some money set aside. We also encourage people to stock up on their medication towards the end of the year if they can, because that buys them time in those early months of the year where they can save up and apply that money to other things. A lot of times people just got out of Christmas. A lot of times retirement plans through workplace are starting over again. So there's a lot of ways that you can use your money intelligently, especially if you can avoid paying those high deductibles early in the year. And even ask that question. Ask your pharmacy, hey, is this going towards my deductible? They should be able to tell you what percentage of that is, or what dollar amount is going towards your deductible. And if they have a good idea on the cost of your medication, they should be able to give you some good advice on whether it makes sense to spend through your deductible or not. Generally, people who are relatively healthy, and again, relatively is somewhat of a subjective term, but I have a lot of customers who take one blood pressure medication, maybe something for cholesterol, maybe the pre-diabetic, generally in pretty good shape. In those cases, using their insurance may not be in their best interest, or we look at the medication they're taking and we say, hey, what alternatives can we use that are cheaper, that don't rely on those high insurance copays or require you to spend through those deductibles. So talk to your pharmacist, ask for what options you have, and know that you don't always have to use your prescription drug insurance just because you have it. Not saying it's a bad thing to have, but knowing how to use that in a smart way is a good resource to have. Take care, team.